Sorry the video didn't work out, but basically we have a 2-acre farm that basically this was just barren land. It was a residential piece with a house on it and lawn. So about 4 years ago, we purchased it and we were like, okay, let's start farming. So we tilled up every inch of the land and started planting. And my whole background has always been bees, right? I started out in 1997 with honeybees. I used to run about 100 hives a year, harvesting about 6,000 pounds of honey. But in the last 10 years, you see that the native bees are the future, right? They're the ones that pollinate 2 to 3 times better than honeybees do. Honeybees are an invasive non-native species. There are many, many ecological problems with them. And the current research shows that in order to get heavy, more well-rounded fruit, you need the native pollinators there. So we designed our farm with that all in mind. So we actually maintain about a tenth to a quarter acre tract of grassland that has little bluestem, goldenrod, aster, bayberry, which probably needs to be cut out at this point because it's taking over a little too much. But basically, the grassland is for the bees to live, right? And we also have natural areas throughout. There's 4,000 different bee species nationwide, and within New York State, 450 different kinds. Of those, 70% live in the ground. So you need to have natural areas in order for them to live. Also, we don't mulch because people that put like, an inch of mulch, there's no way for that bee, including bumblebees, because bumblebees live in the ground since they like to live in old mouse nests because of the fluffiness of the fur. If you have tons of mulch, the bees can't get down. Number 2, we follow organic growing principles, which makes sense, right? If a pesticide can kill a bug, it can kill a bee. We also ensure multiple flowering species are blooming throughout the entire season. Some people have said to me, oh yeah, I help the bees. I have one flowering shrub. Yeah, okay. Well, that just blooms for a week and a half to 2 weeks, whereas that bee is living spring, summer, and fall. So, yeah, Mark? Oh, I thought you so it's living the entire time. So you gotta have food for it the whole time. Also, different bee species have different tongue lengths. For instance, you'll never see a fly, granted that's not a bee, but a fly is also a pollinator, which was the beginning of the video. And flies have really short tongues. So you'll never see a fly at clover, right? But you'll see bumblebees at clover because they have a longer tongue. So you want to make sure that you have different flowers for all different bees. And then those bees will be around to pollinate your crops. We also have multiple cover crops throughout the year. On our Instagram page, which is Blossom Meadow Farm, and on our Facebook page, Blossom Meadow, we have taken a lot of pictures lately of canola, which is the cover crop that's blooming right now, which is predominantly feeding a lot of my mason bees. We plant a cover crop of turnips, canola, and crimson clover in the fall, then that blooms in the spring. Once that's done in another week or 2, we'll till that under, plant 2 rounds of buckwheat, and then in the fall, plant again the turnip and the canola. Because all cover crops should feed your soils as well as your pollinators. Another thing that we do that a lot of people aren't really thinking about is that we turn off the lights at night, right? Moths pollinate. People don't really think of them as pollinating, but they actually do a really good job because they're furry, right? Anything that visits a flower and moves from flower to flower, especially if they're extra furry, like a moth is, they're a pollinator. There was actually a great paper from Maine where they looked at low bush blueberries and they caged some at night and some during the day. And they saw that the ones that were only open at night to nocturnal pollinators actually produced blueberries that were just as large and had just as many seeds as the ones that were produced during the day. right? Now, there wasn't as high of a yield as the ones that were just open for nocturnal pollinators, but still fruit was produced. So we definitely can't underestimate moths, especially with the bee population declining with time. We really need to embrace all of the pollinators that are out there, such as moths and flies, right? Flies are a great pollinator of maple trees because it's so early in the spring when they bloom, and it's usually very cold. And then another thing, a big thing, is don't keep honeybees. I know this sounds crazy because everybody's like thinking all the time about honeybees, but the thing is, honeybees, like I said, are invasive non-native. There are multiple papers out showing now that they have major ecological problems, such as bumblebees, which are my chief pollinators, of our raspberries, and are pollinating those until like 9 o'clock at night. The bumblebees are. They found that bumblebees that live in close proximity to honeybee hives, the bumblebees are actually smaller in size and produce fewer bee babies. And the reason is because honeybees, they get to about 80,000 individuals in size in one hive, right? They can communicate so well through dance that they can outstrip an area of pollen and nectar before the native bees can take advantage, right? So if my chief workforce consists of mining bees and mason bees and bumblebees, then why am I helping out a honeybee, which really is not a very good pollinator at all, right? So we got rid of our honeybee hives, and it is anecdotally, I've seen an increase in bumblebees and other winged creatures. So we are on track to harvest a few thousand pounds of strawberries, blueberries, red raspberries, and black raspberries from our farm, which we make jam from all of it. And we actually won the National Good Food Awards this year for our strawberry jam and our red raspberry jam. So we're pretty psyched about that. And we have a website, blossommeadow.com. And that's it. Thanks.
Laura, can I try showing the mason bee film?
The one of them going, yeah, let's see if it works.
Mason bees use mud to plug up where they laid their babies. I had just
you got it?
taken
yeah, it's too jumpy.
Wow. Okay.
This pile, and now
we'll share that on a link in the future.
So basically, what Mark was trying to show is, since I'm a bee rancher, I raise and sell the mason bee cocoons. And mason bees are part of the megachilid family of bees, which means that they're furry on their underside. So they belly flop onto the flower and grind the pollen in. That's why they're such good pollinators. So mason bees, just like their name assumes, what they do is after they go and do collection trips of pollen and nectar and put it into hollow plant stems, because they are hollow plant stem nesters, they lay a bee baby on it, and then an egg, and then they go and collect mud, and then they take that mud and plug up where they laid their baby, sleep in the tunnel overnight, and the next day do the same thing. They only live for about 6 weeks, so May and June. Right now, every single day they're really active, and since they live for such a short amount of time, they really, even when it's cold and drizzly out, they're out there visiting the flowers. Thanks, Mark. Next.